Now, in East Asia tonight, we've previously covered how China's dominance in electric vehicles has triggered a widening gulf between countries which want them and politicians who don't. But in Africa, there is no sign of the growing trade tensions between Beijing and the West. Instead, a number of African governments are welcoming Chinese EV imports and local production by Chinese manufacturers. Isaac Lukando reports from Tanzania.
Dar es Salaam, a busy, bustling place, is like many African cities being transformed by a surge in electric vehicles. 2- and 3-wheelers dominate the roads here, and they're rapidly being switched out for electric mopeds with the help of China. Zakia Thabit, a food delivery driver, made the transition a couple of years ago because she could no longer afford the fuel.
Sina matumizi makubwa ya kama chombo cha mafuta. Ni chombo kizuri ambacho kinaweza kusaidia kama mimi kijana mdogo ambaye nafanya kazi.
The company Zakia works for, Piki, imported 32 electric mopeds from China in 2021 and says the move has resulted in reporting healthier profit margins since the move. Still, adopting electric vehicles has not been without its challenges. Chief among them is their relatively short lifespan.
Kuna masuala ya betri na utunzaji wa chombo kwa maana ya ile body ni viko rahisi sana kuharibika.
Tanzania is one of East Africa's leading countries in the switch to electric, motivated among other reasons by a desire to cut air pollution. There are over 5,000 EVs on the roads, the highest number in the region, and growing. Some local ride-hailing apps now let you request an electric vehicle like this one, which is a cheaper option compared to regular cars with combustion engines. In the past few years, at least 10 companies have entered Tanzania's e-mobility market. Tri is one of them, importing parts for 3-wheelers from China and assembling them in its factories. It has sold over 90 units so far, offers affordable vehicles to professional drivers through a lease-to-own scheme, and has ambitions to expand across Africa.
We have suppliers, people interested in from different countries like Malawi, Congo, Ethiopia, Zambia. They're all inquiring on how we can send them shipments directly to them.
Despite tax-free incentives on imports, Tanzania's EV industry faces other challenges to growth: limited funding, a shortage of technicians, and low consumer awareness.
It will take a minute for someone to believe that you can charge a vehicle for 2 hours and drive 100 kilometers. And they always wonder, what if I want to drive 110 kilometers? Which is obvious, like if your phone dies, you know your phone is dying, you'll charge, especially if you're using it for work. So it's the same thing, but adaptation is a process.
Since 2009, Beijing has provided subsidies and tax breaks to Chinese EV manufacturers, thus allowing them to sell to overseas markets relatively cheaply. In Africa, trade in EVs is dominated by the import of components from China. But there is also increasing interest for Chinese car makers to form local partnerships. This has led to the creation of jobs and given a leg up to budding efforts to build a domestic EV industry. As Western countries debate the merits of opening up their markets to Chinese manufacturers, industry experts here expect to see more EVs on African roads, boosting economies and providing quieter experiences on the road. Isaac Lukando, CNA, Dar es Salaam.
And for more insights, Stephen Dyer joins us from Shanghai. He is a co-leader of Alexis Partners Greater China business, and he's also the head of the firm's Asia Automotive and Industrials Consulting Practice. Well, thanks so much for joining us this evening, Stephen. First up, perhaps you could help us understand and share some of the key findings from your firm's latest report on the East Asian EV market, and what do they mean for the industry?
Well, thanks, Oteli. We recently published an Alex Partners Global Automotive Outlook, which is an annual review of what's going on in the auto industry. And again, this year, the story really is China. China's become the center of gravity for the automotive industry, and particularly electric vehicles. There are more electric vehicles sold in China than anywhere else in the world, made up about 40% of all vehicle sales in China so far this year. We expect by 2030 it'll reach over 3/4. So That's been the result of a combination of government subsidies to build the industry, an interest by Chinese consumers in intelligent technology, and just a proliferation of value for money and attractive options for vehicles. Over 137 brands of electric vehicles are now for sale in China. So we looked at the 70s and 80s as the advent of Japanese car makers around the world, maybe the 90s for Korean car makers, the 2010s for new EV startups like Tesla. It's possible now we're at the forefront of the advent of the China age in the automotive industry globally.
Yeah, 137 brands. That's pretty impressive coming out of China. But let's just talk about, in terms of challenges and opportunities, I mean, what does the African market present for Chinese EV manufacturers? And I guess that these EVs will also have to adapt to local needs, right?
Right. The Chinese market is highly competitive. We've undergone about 18 months of a price war in China. So that drives a lot of Chinese automakers to look outside of China for markets in which they can sell their vehicles at a better margin. So Southeast Asia, Europe, Oceania, and of course Africa and the Middle East are target markets for them. The demand for EVs in these markets has not reached the level of China's EV demand, and that's because a lot of the markets either lack the government subsidies to make them cost-effective for consumers, or the charging infrastructure that's so prolific in China. But as the cost of EVs come down and there's price parity with regular gasoline-powered vehicles, that will overcome one of those obstacles. And the next obstacle will really be about, is it easy to find a charging station in those markets? And when those things converge, then I think you'll see a pickup in many markets, including Africa.
You're right. So as the cost of EVs come down, can Africa absorb, say, the spare capacity from these Chinese EV makers? And what are some of the implications for the local industry?
Yeah, the rule of thumb in the automotive industry generally is long-term, you want to make cars where you sell them. And so exports of cars from China recently, and in the past from Japan and Korea and Germany, typically have been short to medium term solutions. So as the market grows to enough volume to support local assembly operations, we typically see a step where exporters will then begin assembling what we call semi-knockdown kits, and then completely knockdown kits. And then later, as the volume reaches a certain scale, you'll see the local development of an automotive ecosystem. That's happened in many places in Southeast Asia, especially in Thailand. It's beginning in Vietnam. I expect to see that in Africa longer term, but probably not in the short term.
And Stephen, what's your take on Chinese EV makers like BYD? They're expanding operations, despite the trade war and slowing demand. I mean, is it a sustainable move at the rate of their expansion?
Well, companies like BYD have undergone really unexpected growth over the last couple of years. So BYD is clearly a success story from the Chinese stable of automakers. According to our recent study, of the 137 EV brands in China, we expect by 2030, only about 19 of them will have achieved sufficient scale to be viable, profitable. That doesn't mean that you won't have more than that in the market, because consolidation takes a long time, especially in China. But it's going to be a struggle. So not all the brands will survive. Some will be bought, some will be merged, and some may unfortunately leave the market. So certainly exports and looking overseas out of China is one avenue to bolster demand and sales volume to achieve scale.
Yeah, so a lot of the brands out of the 137 won't survive, it seems like. So how then do you see the geopolitical battle over EV production and access to critical materials? How do you see that playing out and obviously the implications for the industry?
Well, it has a direct implication for the industry. So recently we've seen Europe, which had previously been a rapidly rising export destination for Chinese EVs, adopt new tariffs from anywhere from 28.7% to 48.7% on Chinese EVs. So that will limit the amount of exports, but some Chinese EV companies will still be able to export to Europe and make profit, even eating the tariffs without passing them on to consumers. There's that big of a cost advantage, probably about a 35% cost advantage of Chinese EVs versus a European-made, European brand EV. That said, the tariffs will probably in the long term simply accelerate the already existing plans of Chinese automakers to set up local assembly operations in Europe. And that could be anywhere from Eastern Europe to even Turkey, which has recently BYD's announced an assembly plant to be set up in Turkey as well. So in the end, as I said before, automakers want to make cars where they sell them. And inevitably, that's not bad for the local economy. Certainly, it'll bring competition for the automakers in Europe. But it will provide jobs and continue to build the EV ecosystem there. So that's probably what the long-term scenario will look like.
It's been great chatting with you. And thanks so much for sharing your insights. Good to have you in East Asia tonight. Stephen Dyer there from Elix Partners.